Everybody, and thank you once again for purchasing one of our stash boxes, or one of my stash boxes actually. Today we're going to be going over the Mimic stash box. It comes in this nice little case here, kind of packaged up as well as I could for it. And inside there is going to be an instruction packet, just like this. Pretty good at explaining what to do, but I kind of like to do these videos just so I can go over some of the more finer details that you really can't cram onto a piece of paper, or else this will end up being a book in its own form. In the box is pretty much going to have all your parts, including some extras of the eyes in case when you go to paint them, you know, you may have some issues going on with those, or something may get out of hand, or you just don't like the end result. So I've included some extra eyes in there. There's three styles of eyes, just slit direction, and you can use those as you please, or you can just come up with your own design. They're just kind of there as a guideline or just an idea. As you can see in the package, we have hidden stuff down underneath, and these foam parts are removable, so if you need to get down there a little bit more, you can go ahead and just pull those out. I didn't glue any of that together just so you can access the parts a little bit easier. Now this top foam piece that does come in the box, it's great for setting off to the side and using that as kind of like your gluing platform. You can use wood glue or super glue. I like to use super glue just because it's quick, easy, does have a really strong bond. The wood glue also provides a really strong bond, but the gluing process is going to be a little bit slower in terms of getting things put together, and me being, trying to get these out the door, I tend to do things a little bit faster. Alright, so on the instructions, as you can see, it kind of comes into two different halves. We've got our top half and then our lower half. The top half has a little more intricacy in the fact that you need to get the magnet just right, and there's a face piece right here, or behind the eyes. If you notice, there's a star that says it's going to go on the left-hand side. Make sure you pay attention to that, because that is important, and especially the magnet. Speaking of the magnets, a couple of these do have magnets that I've already installed, and just to make sure I did my job properly, you want to go ahead and, like I said, if you need to, you can pull this off and set that off to the side so you can get to the other parts easier. I also like using tweezers, so I can easily pull that out, because once you start pulling these off, like, you aren't going to need the eyes until later, or the hasps. So to keep all the parts nice and neat, I kind of keep this together, or you can just, like I said, pull it out and just start emptying it on the table. So going back to the magnets, the one thing you want to make sure is, you notice this is on one side of the bar. You want to make sure that that sticks together, that they're attracted to each other and don't repel each other. And that they're on the same side of the wood, because if it's turned around, it's going to repel. If you face it or put it on your back piece, up, and we'll go over that when we get to that point, it's not going to have as much of an attraction as this thing right here. You can see that's pretty dang strong. Alright, so we're going to go ahead and put this piece back off to the side, and we're going to work on the top portion, get that out of the way, of the Mimic box. And let's see, got the teeth, got there. Okay, so these teeth are going to be buried down here, so we will have to pull some of this out. The first part of this is going to be the sides. I'm going to put this here because that's going to be part of it. And if you take a close look at the way all this is done, if you notice that the sides are a little bit different in color. During the laser engraving process, one side being up, as it burns through, you'll get this nice little kind of char around the edges where the laser engraver hits it. Now, I like to keep that in place because, as I could clean it up and make it all nice and pretty and remove that, but some people like that look, and it's one of those things that if you get rid of it, well, it ain't coming back. You can try and paint it on, but I kind of like how this looks, and some other people do as well, because when either you stain it or even leave it as is, it kind of gives it a weathered or vintage look. but you can see that I've tried to situate these to where they will be on specific sides. So since these are going to be on the opposite sides of the chest, you'll notice they face a certain direction, and you want to kind of pay attention to that as you're piecing this together, so that way you're getting it on the outside so you can see those if you want. I mean, I'm not going to tell you what to do. This is just a general guideline, and you do you. Alright, so we're going to go ahead. We got these off here. I'm going to go ahead and grab the rest of the top pieces. Get those out here. Same thing with all of these. You'll notice they all have a nice little soot pattern to them on the side. The other side, not so much. It may have some soot pickup from the bed, as you can see here. Do a lot of work on here. And heck, you may even want that on there to accent your stash box. Alright, and we need one more piece. We need, like I said, one with the star. So we got all the top pieces, we have the back piece with the magnet, and we have the front facing piece with the star. Remember, the star is going to be on the left. The way I like to do this is I go ahead and start off with the back side, and you can either do this one piece at a time or two pieces, however you feel. And as you're doing this, make sure you're not pushing all the way down here, pushing real hard on this. If it's snug, just kind of wiggle it in and apply pressure pretty much right at the joint until it snaps into place. You may have to adjust this as well. Just kind of push right there until you get a nice even seat, and your hinge pin hole is even. I'll go ahead and get that in there. Said you can do it one at a time if you want. Might be a little easier for you. That one went nice and easy. Alright, get that pushed up. Oops, get back there. And just making sure everything is lining up. Alright, like I said, with that soot look, I have that on the outside on both sides. If I did this, it would, or if I flip them around, then you would have the bare side on the outside. And I'm going to go ahead and pop in this front piece, and don't glue anything in together quite yet. I probably should have said that a little bit before I started putting these together. But I'll go ahead and get that. Oh, come on. Get these lined up. I'm trying to do this to where you can see it in the video. So we'll just kind of wiggle that in. Applying pressure towards the joint area. Get that lined up, get that wiggled in. You don't want to apply too much pressure. There should be enough wiggle room to where you don't have to break out the hammer to force it in. Alright, so we got our two lineup pieces in together. Oh, I just noticed I got that one. Oh. Alright, so now we're going to go ahead and line up the rest of them. Like I said, I'm only human, so once in a while I'll make mistakes, and just as I noticed on this one. But hopefully it shouldn't take away from it. But I glued the magnet on the wrong side. I wanted the soot side on the outside. But it's nice clean. You can, when you go to stain it, you can do that. This is going to be a sample piece for the shop to hang on to and show people what these can look like. Like I said, they're selling them as kits. And I'm just going to go ahead and wiggle that in. Mild pressure. Don't want to push too hard. And sometimes when you get these other ones in here, it'll help line the others up. So that one's going in a little hard. So I'm going to just kind of take this and wiggle it in. Now this one's going to be a little bit of a pain, it looks like. But that's part of, I try and make these snug, so sometimes you may not even have to use glue in some portions of it. But I want to try and get as snug as fit as possible. And it all comes down to how the size of the wood is, and coming down to this thin of wood, even a small variation of a millimeter can cause either it to be too loose or too snug. Alright, so we'll go ahead and push it down. Like I said, trying to apply pressure to the joint as close as possible. As you can see it, oh, dang it. That one popped out. Get that one back in. And this is why I don't want any gluing done prior to, because if these don't line up properly, you might have to do some sanding or some reconfiguration or get things moved around a little bit. Alright, so this one is definitely being tight. I'm going to go ahead and just take my tweezers and kind of right at the joint, get that pushed in a little bit. You can use other dull objects as well, just like I said. Just make sure you aren't pushing down here to where it's going to bend or flex and really kind of bust that joint. There you go, that'll work. We'll just use this. Just going to grab another piece of wood and get some good pressure in there to get that put down in there. Man, that's a really snug fit on that one. Wiggle it back and forth, it'll eventually pop in. You can hear it every time it pops, that's it moving down just a hair further. And we'll, if I can get this one in, you guys can get the other one. So just slight pressure back and forth, rocking it down. It's getting closer. Some of these are going to fall right into place. Some of them are going to fight you along the way. And if you ever break something, just shoot me a message, let me know. Maybe I'll provide some extra parts at your retailer just so you can pop in and say, hey, I broke this part. But you don't want to glue anything. I cannot emphasize that enough. You don't want to glue anything until you get it into place. That down. Alright, so as you can see, we got a nice little snug fit all the way around. And this is another reason why I like using the super glue, because the wood glue will not seep into the wood and create a tight bond. If you put it together underneath the joints, that works great. But this one will actually, as I go along these beads, will soak into the wood and adhere to each other. So I'll just run, just kind of like I'm caulking. And careful, because sometimes it'll seep out the fronts and you'll end up super gluing your fingers together. I've done that plenty of times before. And of course, have a rag readily available so you can wipe up any excess. Don't want to run too much, just enough to kind of get in there, like I said, and that wood will